Glad you could join us in this edition of EdTech Mondays Africa. We are coming to you from the beautiful city of Cape Town in South Africa. And on this special edition of EdTech Mondays Africa, we are going to be looking at the South African EdTech ecosystem. What exactly are the success stories, the challenges, the solutions to some of these challenges, and where are the opportunities in the EdTech ecosystem? We'll be speaking to the policymakers, the tech hubs, the EdTech solution developers, the parents, the teachers, and really everyone in the ecosystem. Throughout the year, we have been focusing on a number of conversations to advance EdTech in Africa. We've talked about emerging technologies, we've talked about artificial intelligence, big data, and also the role of policy. How are these conversations shaping up, and how can we use these conversations to advance education technology in 2025? Join us as we take you through, get to learn, and also get to engage these stakeholders. So to help us contextualize what's happening here at the South African EdTech Week, we are joined by Ingeni's Executive Director, Krista Davidson. Krista, thank you so much for joining us. Incredible work, I can already tell. This being the third edition of the South African EdTech Week, tell us about what we should expect for the 2024 edition.
The first day today is all about empowering the teachers. So all about the educator's voice, because you can have the most amazing technology in the world, but if the teacher isn't buying in and it doesn't work for them in the classroom, then of course it's not going to be relevant in our context. Day 2 is all about breaking down those barriers, fostering collaboration, and really moving the conversation forward. And finally, day 3 is all about the Mastercard Foundation EdTech Fellowship Program. So this is our showcase of our 2024 Cohort 2 Fellows, where we'll get to hear from 12 really incredible EdTech companies who have gone such a far way in sort of building traction, building out impact in the South African market, changing educational outcomes for their learners, for teachers that they work with every day.
And speaking of day 3, there's going to be so much happening with, the showcasing of the EdTech Fellows solutions. But that brings me to my next question around what your assessment is of 2024 generally in the EdTech ecosystem, and what are you hoping for in the near future?
We're at a really interesting time in EdTech generally, but especially within the rise of AI over the last year or two. It's such a hot topic. We're seeing AI in almost every education solution that comes our way, that comes across our desks. And EdTech Fellows that are in this program are no exception. They're thinking about AI. They're understanding that the future of technology is here, and it's here to stay. And so how do we incorporate the good while also assessing the risk and use that for the good of education? So a lot of interesting personalized learning solutions, a lot of really smart and efficient ways of bringing AI into traditional education interventions that will help to alleviate burdens on teachers, on parents, on learners in various ways.
Speaking of artificial intelligence, let's get into some of the highlights of what exactly the South African EdTech Week has been able to bring to its audiences and whoever gathered here from South Africa and beyond.
I expect that from this EdTech Week, we are able to come up with some policies that can shape EdTech not only for South African EdTech companies, but policies or frameworks that can benefit the entire continent. We are always preaching about creating solutions for Africans and by Africans.
The panel discussions for me really stood out this year. It really focuses on the major pain points or the challenges faced for industry. I think for the first time we've got real test situations. So we're not just talking about the solutions, we are actually looking at it in practice.
And then also the nature of education. Education is not something that you enforce a solution on overnight. There's many stakeholders that need to be taken into account. Decision makers, we've got parents, teachers, the students themselves.
I learned a lot about, using offline resources, especially in a low-income area where there are internet connectivity issues, exhausting those offline resources, and also, having a mindset where you can integrate technology without even having the devices.
We are in the exhibition area at the South African EdTech Week, and we have quite a number of EdTech solution developers who are showcasing their solutions, most of who are fellows of the Mastercard Foundation EdTech Fellowship Program. And joining us to talk to us more about her solution is Seho from African Code. Thank you so much for joining us. Maybe you want to tell us a little bit about African Code?
Thank you. So African Code is an academy where we teach teachers how to teach coding and robotics and how to integrate coding and robotics into any classroom that they like.
How do you teach teachers how to teach?
They already know how to teach the basics. And so we then show them how to use coding and robotics as a tool, starting first with what they know, linking it to what they don't know, and making it make sense in the context of technology.
Who is using the solution at the moment?
Teachers mainly in rural and township areas. So this in the school context, that is who is using the training that we're using, that is who is using the resources that we've developed.
As a developer of solutions, what would you say have been your biggest challenges in the industry since you started in 2020?
So we speak about EdTech a lot, but in the context of South Africa and Africa as a whole, because of infrastructure, because of resource lack, we've realized that we can't just be EdTech focused without thinking about those who don't have resources. And so, yes, it being a challenge that we cannot give the solution as widely as we want to, we then decided to mitigate it by creating unplugged coding resources so that we can reach the deepest of the deep and the furthest of the furthest that can also learn in this interesting way without being disadvantaged by their lack.
You are part of the Mastercard Foundation EdTech Fellowship. What has been the biggest learning out of the fellowship program?
For me, the biggest learning has got to be how we measure, evaluate, and learn from our experiences on the ground. And that's something that we had a very basic form of. Now we have a full understanding. We've got good, proper processes on how to measure the impact that we are making in the communities.
And now let's move on and talk to our next EdTech developers. And talk to us about Topic.
So Topic is a supplementary education platform for learners in grade 10 to grade 12. So what we did was, and why it's called Topic, is we look at the annual teaching plan within the CAPS curriculum for South Africa. And every week there's a topic that you have to get under your knee basically before you can move on to the next. And that's why we called our product Topic, because we focus on those weekly topics specifically for learners.
What are your thoughts around the ecosystem in South Africa?
I think the ecosystem, they're trying to evolve and move with the times, but it's up to guys like us to actually move and accelerate that pace that we're working at. So, and I think hence for that reason, when we started our product and we launched it in August last year, we were focusing on the individual learner directly, because we were actually combating the expensive costs of hiring a tutor. So that's what we were going at. And we've been very fortunate to really get thousands of learners on our platform, proving that it works.
Another captivating solution at the South African EdTech Week exhibition area is MindJoy. Curious to know what exactly MindJoy does.
I'm Gabby, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of MindJoy, and we're building an AI native platform for accelerating STEM education across the continent.
Accelerating STEM across the continent, a very much needed solution here. So how does it work?
Well, we're an end-to-end solution, so teachers can leverage the power of AI and use it with their students in classrooms. So that's in high school and university. So basically, take their normal coursework, pair it with an AI tutor and an AI assistant that helps do assessments on an ongoing basis, and then leverage all of that personalized support and data to drive powerful insights and see where students are struggling with difficult subjects like math, science, and engineering and programming.
You're part of the Mastercard Foundation EdTech Fellowship Program. How valuable has it been being part of the cohort for this year?
One, just being around fellows and having building a community of other fellows going through that. It's also given us an opportunity to focus on our impact. So that's been really awesome. We've had the support in developing a theory of change, and really being able to, drill down into what impact metrics matter and grow our user base, which has been very, very exciting. So in the time we've been in the program, we've doubled our user base. So it's been like a really awesome experience from that perspective.
Tell me about the EdTech ecosystem right now, because you've been doing this for quite some time. I'd like to think that there are quite a number of learning institutions that are using the platform. What institutions are these? Are these just those that are based in the urban areas, or are you also reaching out to those in underserved communities?
Yeah, so we have quite a mix of organizations. So we have universities, engineering faculties, maths, science faculties at some of the top institutions across the country, which is really, really exciting. Use Mindray to enhance STEM education, and just, like we're seeing that now roll out not just as after-school support or extra tutorial support, but in classroom use. And then we have schools across the country in different contexts. We just did a pilot with a school that works on a blended model in an under-resourced community, and where they've got like one teacher to 100 students. So really trying to see the technology in a classroom with large teacher or large student groups and few teachers.
Gabrielle talked about a solution that is being used in one of the low-income schools here in South Africa, and we are excited to find out what exactly the learners are doing, how they're interacting with the solution at the school. So we'd like to take a trip to Apex School here in South Africa, and just to find out how the learners are having this collaborative learning with the solution that is Mindjoy. Apex Stellenbosch School is a 45-minute drive out of Cape Town. At this school, collaborative learning sits at the core of how students here are taught. This school is a church by the weekend and a classroom by the week. They have about 100 learners in the classroom, each one of them with a computer right in front of them, which makes personalized learning even more impactful. Let's find out what kind of EdTech solutions they are incorporating in their learning environment. How do you think technology is helping you as a school to meet your teaching and learning outcomes?
When we started the school on the 17th of Jan 2024, majority of our scholars did not even know where to power on the Chromebook, So we received students, within the community that really didn't know anything a lot about technology. Yes, the everyday usage of a cell phone, etc., but not necessarily a Chromebook. So we did some onboarding in the first 3 weeks, exactly telling them, how does this work? How do you care for technology? What is the place of technology within our country and within our world and within their little lives that they have? And today we've got scholars that can do emails, that can attach files, they can do PowerPoint presentations, etc., which are all linked to the fourth industrial revolution skills that one needs, nowadays in the world that we live in. So I definitely know that as my scholars leave us by 2028, when they are done with matric, they will be individuals that not only have a head on their shoulders and then are academically solid, but they also have a technology and tech background for any job that is that is available to them.
Do you feel that by the time they get to the exam period, technology has played a role in preparing them in addition to what the teachers are giving them?
100%. If I think of programs such as Mindjoy that we use, which is an AI tutor, so we actually encourage that the scholars first make use of all of the platforms and programs available to them before they actually get to us to ask us for an answer, because it does, encourage a little bit of self-learning. So if you are stuck, you don't always have to ask someone. There are ways in which you can navigate yourself on various programs and platforms in order for you to know or get to the answer or get to a solution with whatever problem that you are sitting with.
What role do you think the government can play in bringing the rest of the learning institutions to the Apex Stellenbosch level?
I'm sure they are able to, to provide, Chromebooks and classes, although there's been a lot of budget cuts. But the technology in my head, I'm like, that you can fund. You can fund a Chromebook or a tablet or whatever device you feel, you can afford. But it is about the training of the teachers. That is the biggest, in my opinion, the biggest components. Because if you're not going to have a next level team then it's going to fall flat. If you're not going to have a principal or deputy, management members that's going to take control and, and steer this ship, then it's going to fall flat.
We're currently in a maths lesson here at Apex Stellenbosch. There are about 100 learners in this classroom of grade 8, and we'd like to speak to 2 of them just to hear how they are incorporating technology in their lessons. How is technology working for you in the classroom?
In our classrooms, we use Chromebooks as our textbooks, as our workbooks, as our everything practically. And using a Chromebook is very convenient because you literally have all sorts of resources you may need to support your studies and schoolwork on this little piece of technology.
What's the best part about technology for you?
When they introduced this MindJoy website to us, this is like the best part. We have different tutors on MindJoy that we ask to help us with different concepts of work. We have tutors for math, natural sciences, geography, and history.
Do you guys feel like you still need teachers? I mean, if you're able to access everything you need on the gadgets, why do you need a teacher?
We still do need teachers because our teachers, man, have been our guiding lights, man. They've been imparting us with wisdom that extends beyond these Chromebooks that they give us, man. So I think they are very important for us.
I also do think we still need teachers because the teachers are humans, right? And they have the emotional support that some scholars may need, whereas a Chromebook cannot do that because it is just basically programmed and I could call it a robot. Yes.
For your age, do you feel like you have all that you need in terms of technology, or do you wish you could carry this computer home and continue with what you're doing?
I honestly feel like I have all that I need because when I get home, I have my cell phone, we have Wi-Fi, TV where you could practice doing PowerPoints and everything. And at school, I have my Chromebook, also Wi-Fi. So that is all I need actually.
Do you feel that technology is now allowing you to get access to information beyond the classroom? And if yes, besides playing games, what else do you do on the gadgets?
When I need to do research on my certain work and projects that I need to do, I use technology to get me more information and detailed answers on what I'm working on. So I think technology is the best for now, but I think there's still some more things that can be improved on technology, ma'am.
Tell me about that.
When we're working with ELO includes many sexual information that we need to talk about, but MindJoy doesn't give us that information, ma'am. They kick us out before after we ask that question, they kick us out before answering that question, ma'am.
And is that a problem? Is that a challenge to you?
It is a challenge because we have to now go on different websites to get the information that we need, and I think that's time consuming, ma'am.
If there's one thing that you could change with technology, what would that be?
I could improve a lot of things because I was thinking about an invention where things can be teleported, and that needs a lot more advanced technology. So yeah, it needs more work.
Solutions such as MindJoy are helping these learners integrate their learning. It's such a collaborative solution that the learners are able to keep up with and follow up on their assignments through this platform. And these are some of the solutions that are coming out of the Mastercard Foundation EdTech Fellowship and being incorporated into the learning institutions.
So one of the ways in which we incorporate technology is through our MindJoy AI tutor. So this tutor really helps our kids to ask some really tough questions. They get the opportunity to think critically when asking questions. And I think that sort of pushes the thinking of our scholars. And I think it doesn't matter where your kid is. The only thing that matters is the progress that they're making.
One of the biggest worries and the challenges for technology in education is that there's always been the perception that technology is coming to replace the teacher. Is this true?
For me, it helps me and it enhances my education, whereby it helps me to track data while I teach. So for me, it is actually really a guide on the side to help me teach and also deliver my message better.
Do you think needs to be done to skill teachers, make them better at collaborative learning?
Firstly, there needs to be a paradigm shift in the way we view technology within schools. No technology won't take your job someday. I think you need to use technology to your advantage. So you are sort of the manager in the class. So you have the opportunity to use technology as little or as much as you would like to. I think the first step in all of this is just taking the first step and trying it out.
With these learners that you currently have, there's about 100 of them in this classroom, right? How are you able to keep up with their progress?
Right, so we have a platform that we use that is called PowerEd. In the platform, I'm able to track each and every scholar as they are continuing with the lesson. So I'm able to track data every time when I am giving a lesson. I would introduce the lesson and let them continue with the lesson on their own. On the side, I am busy tracking if everyone is actually on task or off task. If I see there's a scholar that is off task, then I immediately chip in and ask a question or help if I have to.
When learners are falling behind on their milestones, for example, assignments, how do you help them cope or get up to speed with everyone else, considering they have a challenge of screen time and how much time they spend on these digital gadgets?
We have facilitators within our classrooms, and they are a really great benefit to the space. So we have 100 scholars, and having to manage all 100 scholars at once and by one person is practically impossible. So we have facilitators. They help with all of those logistics on managing all of that. They inform me if there's a child that's falling behind, and then I can sort of provide my assistance in that regard.
One of the challenges in other parts of Africa is that there's not as many girls going to school as there are or as there should be. And this is affecting the milestones and increasing or widening the education access gaps. What do you think, from your perspective, needs to be done to bring more girls into the classroom to enable them access quality and relevant learning?
As teachers, to actually go into primary schools, in fact, and give a motivation of actually what type of education do we bring at Apex Stellenbosch. For me, in this classroom, I think it is very inclusive in terms of the fact that if there is a girl who is maybe not so much of an extroverted person, this way of teaching actually also helps the person who is an introvert to actually just focus on their own work, because mostly the work is on their side. They just work on their own. We are just here to guide them through.
Technology in education is not just transformative for the students. The same also applies to the parents. And we'd like to speak to one of the parents whose child goes to Apex Stellenbosch to hear from them about how technology is transforming their child's education. Leah, thank you so much for joining us. Tell me about your child here at Stellenbosch.
Since she came to the school, she's been, I can say, alive, because I think technology is her thing. Last year when I was looking for school, I was thinking, okay, if I put her in one of the schools, then on weekends I will take her to Nova in Cape Town. It's a computer school. And then when I got the school, then I felt there was no need for me to do that, because that was going to be extra money, extra transport every weekend. And now with the school, I'm saving money. She walks to school, and also the school is very affordable.
Affordability is key for education especially. But I want to hear from you. How are you able to afford connectivity, both at home and in school?
We are very lucky here in Kayamandi. We got fiber time. Fiber time costs 150 Rand for the whole month. So, and the school fees is 600 Rand. So all that together is like 750. So it's affordable. I don't have to pay now. I was paying with rain a certain amount, and now I can just pay 150 rand to last us the whole month. When she's out of school, when she gets home, she's able to do all her homeworks online. Of course, they don't do it on books, they do it online.
You talked about affordability at this school. Is it the same across board? Where was your child before she joined this school?
Before she joined the school she comes from also, it was affordable, but they were not learning about computers at all. So the reason I'm saying this school is affordable, because I think what I'm paying is, it's not what I thought I would be paying for this kind of a school. So that is why I'm saying it is affordable.
Would that be one of the considerations or recommendations you'd want to give to the government as well?
Yes, definitely. They need to be able to make the schools affordable for also the parents that have nothing, the parents that don't work. There's also children that are coming from homes that are poor, those homes that can't afford any school fees at all. Especially with computers, they need to be able to, they can have a free class maybe once or twice a week.
Gabriel Immelman is the CEO and founder of MindJoy, the solution that Apex Stellenbosch is using in their classrooms. Gabriel, why Apex?
They have the infrastructure. They also use a blended learning model and really collaborative and 21st century skill focused teaching practices. So they're the perfect partner for MindJoy to introduce AI into the learning process to take it to the next level. And the core thing, in addition to all the infrastructure, was their emphasis on self-directed learning, so empowering every student to take charge of their own learning.
Empowering students to take charge of their own learning. And indeed, we have been able to see in the classroom what exactly is happening there. But, what are some of the learnings you have taken through since the solutions started getting used by the students?
Yeah, I mean, it's been so interesting because every school is a little bit different. Some schools we've had some, it's a much bigger challenge to get the teachers on board. There's quite a lot of professional development and training you have to do to help people understand how to introduce the technology, how to use it, and then also deploy it and use it with the students. So with Apex, it was a little bit different because the teachers are used to using tech in helping the students direct their own learning. But what was really exciting was to see how we could take that to the next level for these students. They're naturally very, very curious. And so being able to talk to the AI tutor, you just saw this classroom lights up. Like, we get thousands and thousands of questions a week from the students in the school.
Right. One of the challenges that governments have been having with EdTech developers like yourselves is the relevance part, making the solution relevant to the curricula for that country.
Yes.
Based on your solution, how relevant do you think it is to the current curriculum in South Africa?
I think so. Our platform allows you to tailor the tutors to whichever curriculum it is you choose. So, for example, these are all CAPS aligned, so they work with the government curriculum. You can even use them subject specifically. So we can set one up for history or maths and English or Xhosa or Afrikaans, and the students can get curriculum aligned language support as well. And the tutors are also multilingual, so the students can code switch, which is often the context of a lot of these students. They speak 2 or 3 languages. English is their second or third language, so they can switch between languages even just to check their understanding, which is really awesome.
Looking at what's happening here at Apex Stellenbosch, the potential for technology is immense. Technology is an enabler, and these learners have demonstrated that the positives of technology far outweigh the demerits. But the big question is, what needs to be done to accelerate the implementation of technology across the continent? And to help us answer some of these unanswered questions, we're joined by a number of stakeholders, including policymakers and implementers, tech hubs, EdTech solution developers, parents, teachers, learners, as well as development partners. And we'd like to have these conversations so they can set the pace for us for 2025. What's your evaluation of the adoption of technology in education?
When we sit and we talk about, the adoption and evaluation, people, they start looking at boxes. But what is important, what is pivotal is you need to have a maturity model. The maturity model will dictate what are the aspects that you need to evaluate, the capabilities. Like one, you'll have different levels. Your initial, maybe the basic, whether you've got all the basic requirements. Then from there, you'll move to the second level where you talk about the managed level, where maybe one has got those capabilities, because you need to move along those lines, and then you have optimized the level. And this has actually been used in many business sector. So even in education, you need to have a maturity model. Then the first capability as part of the maturity model is your policy. Is there a policy in place? That is the starting point. Because without policy, it means what are you evaluating? So you need to start with policy. So from the policy, then you actually zoom into because you have your strategy, your implementation plan. Then what are the elements that actually, captured in your implementation plan? Then one of these might be your infrastructure. Then the second one will deal with your teacher professional development. Because when you evaluate, you must have all these capabilities. You will have your professional development. And thirdly, is your content. Whether it's your paper behind glass, your PDFs, or maybe, your digital content. How do you deal with this issue? Then the other one is going to be connectivity. Your connectivity, you'll segment it into teaching and learning and also administration. And then that's how you can actually look at maybe the adoption of actually technology in education.
For evaluation of the EdTech landscape in Africa, quite a number of things have happened recently, especially post the pandemic. There's been a lot of adoption of digital literacy, EdTech solutions. The key things that I would say are maybe some challenges are the poor foundation infrastructure in various countries in Africa. I can refer to Ghana specifically because we do have internet connectivity issues in some parts of the country, especially the rural areas. So adoption of EdTech solutions in those parts are a little slower as compared to urban centers, just because the infrastructure has not made it fully there. Low connectivity, poor electricity or availability of electricity in those areas have been a bit challenging. But overall, I think there is good adoption of EdTech solutions Africa-wide.
What more do you think needs to be done to accelerate the implementation of technology in education, in your view?
One key area is how do we get leaders to be ready to accept that this transformation is key, and as much as it feels like it's not yet ready to penetrate in a completely rural community and a grassroots level, but there's a role it can play, and it's a very critical role. The second thing, because I say three things, I think is overall investment in infrastructure, especially on last mile connectivity. Innovators and entrepreneurs can do much to come up and create these solutions, but for them to be able to reach to a final last mile consumer, you need digital infrastructure, something which is actually super expensive to put together. And the third thing is overall growth of the ecosystem and collaboration between key actors within the ecosystem. Education is very complex. It is not about engineers, it's not about developers coming up with apps and put them in Google Store or Play Store. It's beyond that. It's about changing people's perception, is about making sure there's equity and availability for everyone who want to access it, is about making sure there's an investment that is ready to take off these things and scale them to a scale where they can reach out to everyone. So it's very, very important, and as we talk about all these things, to look at it at a bigger picture in terms of ecosystem coordination and who is playing what role so that they can be able to create the intended impact.
Support from the principals of the school. They need to come in and be like, teachers, first of all, we see you, we hear you, because, Joy, there are so many concerns around it. Teachers are scared. They're like, wait a minute, I'm an English teacher. I can't teach this. Or wait a minute, I just teach foundation phase. They're going to need to be supported. We need to have training for these teachers. We need to have, one of the most important things, collaboration, because there's schools like at St. Stadians where I am in a privileged space to work in a space where we have the equipment, we have the facilities. So let's collaborate with our surrounding schools. Let's collaborate with our surrounding government schools. have them come in, do some workshops with us, work together, support each other, but it needs to come from the top. Also get the parent body involved, have sessions, explain to the parents what's happening. Because believe it or not, the parents are probably just as scared as the teachers, because they're like, whoa, more time on the screen. Explain to them, let them see the journey of the 21st century learning skills. Become part, it needs to be a community thing. It can't be done in silos, and it can't be done in separate schools all alone. Support the teachers, support the heads of schools, support the parents, and work together for the best outcome for the kids.
The implementation of technology will be able to bridge a lot of gaps, not just in education, across different sectors, but within the education, need to be able to give more access to more disadvantaged community. I would say because I much advocate for disadvantaged or people that have lack of access to education or to quality education, in terms of accessing to schools, because you are from a far rural area that you don't have access to education. But with technology, we're able to help you to have that kind of access, and also be able to learn. We are talking of the 21st century skills, but that is more if we do implement technology in education, and also in terms of how we can restructure our curriculum in terms of how we can incorporate technology into the education.
Why is it important that we invest in EdTech solutions that have got an eye on inclusion? We all know very well that education is one of the drivers of economic growth, drivers for poverty reduction. And it generates benefit not only at the individual level, it also generates benefit at the community and the country and even at the global. But for us to really realize all these benefits, it requires to have equal access to quality educational resources for everyone. And so the need for inclusive education in Africa is very, very critical, especially for the young women. Why? Because young women participation in the economic activities in Africa has been in decline in the past years. I believe in 2022, Africa's GDP was around $3.1 trillion. And only about 11% really is a contribution for young women. And it's a decline from 18% from back in 2000. And so you understand that this is really an economic imperative. It's just not a societal imperative. And so if you want to grow the economy, you have to make sure that the young people that also make up the largest percentage of the population are engaged. And EdTech as a tool for inclusion, as a tool for education inclusion, holds a great potential, because it can allow young women to access flexible, affordable, and quality education that also increases their own employment prospect and their own economic mobility. Government engagement has been one of those sticking out pointers. You know, every time you talk to an EdTech entrepreneur, they're always like, we wish we could engage the government more. But how do they go about this?
So it is true that there's a predominant complaint from the EdTech community. But I think we're also seeing the same from the government to say, who's doing what in our country? Now, what you have to bear in mind is that there are so many EdTech solution providers and other sort of larger community. If everyone went to see the government with individual requests or connections, that's not going to work. They don't have the resources to do that. Post the pandemic, we've started to see almost every government in Africa say, we can't do this alone. So how about we connect with who's already made strides in certain parts of EdTech, show us the data, and let's start working together. So we've got that openness from the government. Now it remains for us to kind of build that ecosystem where we kind of go with one voice from the EdTech stakeholders, like the EdTech companies, and then bring the government in a room, in a space to say, this is what is happening collectively. These are some of the various wins we've seen. These are some of the gaps, but there's opportunities here. Where are the gaps that you're seeing and how do we bridge this? And we're doing this through the EdTech Fellowships that we've started across 9 countries through 8 tech hubs. Everywhere we're kind of bridging the gaps and the communication with the government. So there's willingness from the government to understand what they're doing. And there's also now that need that we need to come and talk to you more. Another way where we're kind of doing this is also quite a few governments are now reviewing their EdTech strategies or ICT in education policies. Again, in the policies itself, we're embedding that the government must work with the private sector. So there has to be every so often consultations with the EdTech community. They kind of reach out through either a platform or some requests for papers. And even as the policy is being built, we're ensuring that the EdTech community's kind of stakeholder voice is embedded in how that policy should be formulated.
Would you tell us about some of the successful partnerships and some of the positive outcomes of EdTech this year?
So in 2024, we have made progress in terms of our bid to increasing access to resilient and inclusive education. And what we have done is we have increased the number of tech hubs that we've been working with from 3 to 8. And more importantly, we now have over 140 EdTech entrepreneurs who have gone through our EdTech Fellowship program, which is really amazing to see. And as we go into 2025, one of the key things that we're doing is we're going to be increasing the number of EdTech entrepreneurship fellowships to 225 across 9 African countries. So we'll be having 12 hubs by the end of 2025. Another key thing that we have done and we've seen in 2024 was really we looked at bringing in all the key stakeholders that are within the EdTech ecosystem so that they can understand why do we do what we do. And by that, what I mean is we hosted the inaugural EdTech Mastercard Foundation EdTech conference in Abuja, Nigeria in July 2024. And there we hosted over 600 stakeholders from across the continent. And we came, and the idea was to discuss how the role of EdTech in supporting a resilient and inclusive education system across the continent. And one of the key highlights that came from the EdTech conference really was 10 key recommendations came out of that into how can we scale up and build a resilient EdTech policy or ecosystem. And at the back of the conference, we had a ministerial roundtable, and it was really inspiring and really encouraging to have 18 African, ministers from our continent. So we had 18 government representatives and ministers, and they all, agreed to prioritizing 3 of the 10 recommendations. So this was really something that was really encouraging for us and the team to see that out of this convening, we have something tangible that has come out of that. And more importantly, we have government officials signing up and saying, yes, we are going to be prioritizing these 3 recommendations out of the 10. We really found that being practical and something that you can see that it's the beginning of a journey that we'll be supporting each other as we go along.
And while looking at the insights from the South African EdTech Week, here on EdTech Mondays, we are going to also be contextualizing and aligning the 10 recommendations from the Mastercard Foundation EdTech conference that happened in Abuja earlier in the year, taking those recommendations and seeing where best we can find solutions to the challenges experienced in Africa's EdTech ecosystem. We'll also be aligning what we have carried in the lessons learned from the South African EdTech Week and seeing what the other EdTech stakeholders are also talking about in the EdTech ecosystem. Here on EdTech Mondays, we look forward to advancing these conversations to being at the forefront and at the center of shifting mindsets. So thank you all so much for joining us on this edition of EdTech Mondays Africa. We look forward to yet another season of advancing conversations on investment in education technology in 2025. My name is Joy Doreen Vera. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on the next season of EdTech Mondays Africa.